If you are someone who excessively exercises and you feel you've been dieting for ages, this video is for you.
Welcome to the What's Eating You podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Giorgio, and I'm a clinical psychologist.
Welcome back, my Mind Food fam. My name is Stephanie, and I'm a clinical psychologist here to break down complex mental health topics. And today we are diving into excessive exercise. If you're watching this video, this is actually my first video ever recorded on a professional camera, so let me know how I did. I'm going to talk about eating disorders and disordered eating, so trigger warning. If this is a bit much for you, make sure you scroll on past. For those who don't know, I went through my own eating disorder for about 9 years, and that's what led me towards becoming a clinical psychologist who works in the area of eating disorders and disordered eating. I have a program called Food Freedom, which is an intensive 12-week online group program that takes you from binge eating, purging, and bad body image to feeling free when it comes to food, not experiencing food guilt, and eating in balance. So you feel happy, thriving, less inflamed, and a lot more in control. Now, today's episode actually came from a viewer. Now, this person wanted to ask about over-exercising. They sent me a message and they basically said, "Hey, Steph, can you talk about how you overcame excessive exercise?" She actually said, "How did you overcome the addiction of exercise and how did you do it?" Now, I'm going to talk about this. For those who don't know, I actually used to have a fitness business. It was a pole dancing studio designed for women to get healthy, fit, and build confidence. It wasn't stripping or anything like that, but this was maybe going back 16 years ago. It was quite a long time, or 10 years ago. What year are we in? 2026. I opened around 2010. So yeah, that actually is I rolled up than I thought. And I used to teach a lot of classes. Obviously, when you're starting a business, you want to do everything yourself. So I was teaching a lot of the fitness classes. Now, many people didn't know, but I was also going through my own eating disorder at this time. And my eating disorder was very on and off. I'd have patches where it was very bad, and then I'd have patches where it was okay. And I'll do a detailed video going into my eating disorder. If you want to hear about it, let me know in the comments. But part of that was excessive exercising. The way it started for me was I thought, oh, if I exercise, then I'll get the dream body and then everything will be fine and I won't have to worry about this anymore. So my eating disorder was triggered by a desire to be thinner, fitter, shredded, because I thought that would bring me joy, happiness, attention. And I honestly thought it would solve all my problems. If I was skinnier, everything would be fine. So when I started to build this business, I was exercising a lot. I was also working with a coach. So I was working with a bodybuilding gym because I thought I wanted to do a bodybuilding competition. I thought that was the answer to my problems. So I was training with a coach whilst I was exercising at my business around 7 hours a day. So I teach 3 hours in the morning of pole dancing. And if you haven't tried pole dancing, it is very, very strenuous. It's very hard and intense. And then throughout the day, I might go see my trainer or my coach. And then at night, I would teach another 3 or 4 pole dancing classes, fitness classes. We also did abs classes, lots of different classes. So it was a lot of exercise. And at the time, I was not fueling my body the way I should have. I was eating super clean, especially because I own this fitness business. I felt this pressure to uphold this perfectionistic standard of eating clean and eating healthy. And a lot of people would comment like, "Oh my God, you eat so healthy all the time." So I loved it and I would lap it up essentially. And I felt I had to keep up this facade in public. I had to eat super clean and super healthy in front of my staff, in front of my students. But little did anyone know was that I was binge eating in private. I was coming home after 7 hours of teaching, absolutely exhausted, stressed. I was running a business. I was also studying honors full time to become a psychologist. Part time, sorry. Honors was part time. And eating was just a way of me releasing the stress of the day, finally feeding myself. And it would usually happen when I would break a dietary rule. So I'd eat a piece of chocolate and think, oh no, I've stuffed up, I'm going to gain weight. So that's what would set my binges off, was this idea that I had broken a dietary rule. I shouldn't be eating this. I stuffed up, and then I went down an all or thinking negative spiral. Now, if this sounds like you and you can relate to this, I highly recommend booking a one-on-one call with me so we can explore your eating issues, because don't leave it like I did. I left it unattended for 9 years. I believed I should be able to get over this. I should be able to get better. I'm studying psychology. Why do I have this problem? But then I turned around and thought, I am studying psychology, and am I prepared to become a psychologist with this secret issue? The smart thing to do is to get help and to figure out what is going to help you. I'll go into how I recovered in another video, but let me stick to the point here, because I can go on all these different tangents, but let's stick to the excessive exercise.
Do you struggle with attention, remembering important details such as appointments or even replying to a text? Organization and day-to-day life stuff such as cooking and cleaning? You are not alone. You may even find it harder than others to manage your emotions. Or do you feel sensitive to perceived rejection or criticism? These are just some of the symptoms we may see in someone who has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. However, even if you don't have diagnosed ADHD, we live in a society where we all struggle at times with our executive functioning. Your executive functioning is the CEO of your brain. It's responsible for planning, remembering, processing information, motivation, attention, and getting started on tasks. There are limited spots in this amazing program, so don't wait to book in. Stay tuned for the release date, and I can't wait to have you be part of the community.
How long did it take you to break your gym addiction, and how did you do it? Now, this is really common. And I don't know if the word addiction is the right word, because an addiction is a behavior that we find difficult to give up. We experience withdrawal symptoms if we don't engage in that behavior, such as drinking alcohol. But I definitely think when it comes to exercise, the addictive part comes in thinking about it all the time. If you don't get that fix, you feel guilty, you feel bad, and you kind of can't wait to get that hit. So I do understand that addictive element. Now, the reason I believe it was addictive for me was because when I didn't go, I was in a bad mood, and an ex-boyfriend actually pointed this out to me. He's like, Steph, when you don't do F45, you're really grouchy. You're addicted to exercise. And I was so shocked because no one had ever called me out on this before. I was an inspiration. I was exercising all the time. I was so strong. Go me. But he actually said to me, you have mood issues when you're not at the gym. And I was like, really? Do I? And whilst he said a lot of things, he might have actually been right about this one. What is over-exercising, and how do you know it's a problem? Over-exercising also can be referred to as exercise addiction or compulsive exercise, is when physical activity becomes obsessive and rigid and you feel compelled to do it. It's usually driven by guilt rather than joy. Oh, I need to go to the gym to burn off what I ate for Christmas. I need to burn off those treats I had last night. And unfortunately, this is reinforced by the health and fitness industry. I remember going to classes and they would say, oh, you're here because of burning off what you ate last night, or come on, ride harder. We need to burn off those Easter calories. And look, gyms and fitness institutions have become better, but we're still not there yet. There's still so much work to go in this. Now, according to the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, exercise addiction is not a formal diagnosis, but rather compulsive exercise is recognized as a common symptom in eating disorders, and it can be also in body dysmorphic disorder. So here are the signs that you might have an exercise addiction. You feel anxious and irritable when you can't work out. You use exercise to earn food or to punish yourself for eating. You train through injury, sickness, or exhaustion. That's a big one. You force yourself to keep going even though you've got an injury or you're tired. 4, you feel your self-worth depends on your fitness level or body shape. And in fact, a 2017 study in Frontiers in Psychology found that 3 to 7% of the general population and up to 45% of individuals with eating disorders show signs of exercise addiction. So it is real. Now, if this is you, don't worry. If I overcame it, you can overcome it too. We're going to go into it. Now, here's why it's a problem. And this was the biggest switch for me. I almost had to engage in reverse psychology to change the way I thought about it. Right now, you think the more I exercise, the fitter or leaner I'm going to become. But actually, exercise can backfire in the opposite way. This is before you speak coffee, by the way. It's high performance coffee. If you want to try it, use the code MINDFOODSTEP to get discount, but it's got MCT oil, ginseng, and turmeric. Really good. So I used to think if I do F45 every single day and eat really healthy, then I'm going to be so lean. And it just wasn't working. I was actually gaining weight over time. So I started to push myself more and more. I didn't understand. Now, what people don't realize is chronic intense workouts without adequate recovery can lead to elevated cortisol. Now, elevated cortisol is that stress hormone that comes through, right? Your stress hormone. Now, it's not bad. Cortisol's not the devil, but cortisol promotes fat storage, especially around the belly. And I've always had a belly, and women with eating disorders usually carry a little bit more fat around the belly just because of the distress that you've caused your stomach. So if you have a bit of a belly, it's normal. It happens from dieting. It happens from gut health, all of that. It can also suppress your immune system. So whilst you think that all this intensive exercise is actually helping you and going in the direction that you want to give you a better body image and to lose weight, it's actually doing the opposite for you because it creates inflammation. So when you over-exercise, when you push yourself too much, it can actually increase your inflammatory markers. And a study in Sports Magazine 2018 confirmed that excessive exercise without rest increases inflammatory markers. It also delays recovery and it increases the risk of illness and injury. I see it all the time. People who over-exercise, they have chronic injuries, and thank God, do my cross there. Thank goodness I don't have an injury yet because I don't think it got to that point. I've had been really sore and had a few things, but nothing serious. But you'll see it. People who exercise, they've always got, oh my God, an issue with their shoulder, an issue with their back, an issue with their leg or knees. And I feel so bad for them because it becomes a double-edged sword. They're trying to exercise to fix their body image and to lose weight, but because they're pushing themselves so hard, they end up with injury and they can't even exercise at all. So it's almost as though something major needs to happen to force this rest. Do you eat a large amount of food in a short period of time and feel a loss of control? Maybe you make yourself sick after you binge eat. If this is you, you're not alone. I'm a clinical psychologist who went through a 9-year eating disorder, and I know how to get to the other side of food freedom. If you're ready to ditch the dieting mentality, discover food freedom, and find confidence in yourself and your body, click the free eating evaluation call. The link is below. So 1, exercise can cause inflammation when it's excessive. And this, number 2, can lead to weight gain. Your over-exercising could actually be reinforcing your weight gain. That's right. And this was so hard for me to believe and understand. And it took a lot of professionals to teach me this. The reason is metabolic adaptation. Your body slows down to conserve energy. So when you're over exercising and you're not eating properly, you're under eating, you're purging, everything's going to slow down. It's going to slow down to keep you alive. And when it slows down, you're not going to lose weight because your body's like, I just need to keep this girl alive. Number 2 is it disrupts your hormones, okay? It affects leptin and ghrelin, which are your hunger hormones. And when you are over exercising, that's bad enough, right? That can affect your hormones. When you're over exercising and you're not eating and recovering properly, that can lead to hormone havoc. The third is muscle loss. Too much cardio with little fuel can actually reduce lean muscle mass, slowing metabolism. Now, women in their 30s, which are the women I typically work with, already are heading into that menopausal age on the later end of the spectrum. But From the age of 30, you start to lose muscle mass. That's why it's so important. You shouldn't be pushing your body and pushing your joints because that can also affect your well-being and health. Okay? Now, the International Journal of Obesity published findings showing that women who exercised excessively with restricted calories experienced lower resting metabolic rates over time, which actually makes weight loss harder over time. For me, I had to ask myself some very serious questions. I had to say, Steph, is this working for you? You are pushing yourself so many times in the gym. You're exhausted. You feel like rubbish. Even though after that workout, I'd get that euphoria and dopamine and woo, I'm so strong and going and the music. And I'm not demonizing exercise. Exercise is fantastic, but there's a fine line. I would say, is this actually getting the result you want? Are you actually getting the body you want? This was at the time. Is it actually working for you? How long are you prepared to keep going like this? What is your game plan, Steph? Are you just going to continue to over exercise even though you're not losing weight? Even though it's making you inflamed, it's making you exhausted, why would you do it? And there was actually one coach that sat down with me once and he said, Steph, if you didn't have to run every day to get your dream body or lose weight, would you do it? And I'm like, probably not. This was in my running phase. We all have a running phase. And the second thing that got me there was I spoke to a clinical naturopath. So I was experiencing a lot of fatigue and exhaustion, and I just wanted to get to the bottom of it. I spent a lot of money on testing. I invested it was expensive. It was like $700 to get tests done, full test, because your doctor won't do all these specific tests, but a clinical naturopath will. And I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I wanted to know were my hormones messed up? Did I have adrenal fatigue? What's going on? Because having disrupted eating disrupts so much that no one talks about. Gut issues, adrenal fatigue, and not everyone will have this. Dental issues if you're purging. So I really wanted to do a deep dive on my hormonal health and well-being. The good news is this clinical naturopath, he said to me, Steph, you've got two options. You've either got to slow down on the exercise because it's probably leading to the fatigue and the adrenals and all that, or we need to support this. If you really want to do this and you want to exercise this hard, then we need to support it. And I had to make a big decision then. And I said, no, I want to feel better. I'm sick of feeling like this. I want to feel better. I want my body to be less inflamed. I will do what it takes. Tell me what to do. I know it's going to be hard, but I'll do it. And he said, okay. So the supplementation was one part of it. But what made me get over excessive exercise was realizing that excessive exercise wasn't getting me my result. I wasn't losing weight. I was actually gaining weight. I was actually more inflamed. I felt like crap. And so psychologically, to actually realize, and I know this is so hard to believe because everyone's like, yeah, they grind and push and don't take a rest day, and diet and gym culture really pushes that. But it's so hard to believe that doing less is actually more. It was so hard for me to comprehend that not pushing and grinding in the gym could actually change my body more. So that was the difficult conversation. It's like, okay, I can keep going down this road, but what does that look like? Am I prepared to stay the same? Or am I willing to actually give this a go? What could that look like? If I choose to slow down, if I choose to stop doing intense exercise, I was actually looking forward to it. I was actually like, wow, that's actually going to be very nice. In fact, a 2016 study found that 30 minutes of daily brisk walking was just as effective as a HIIT workout. So HIIT stands for high intensity interval training for fat loss and cardiovascular health with less cortisol elevation. I talk about walking all the time. Walking. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your digestion. It's so good for your blood sugar, everything. And I was never a walker. In fact, I didn't understand. I thought I don't need to walk. I could hit F45 every day. I'm so fit and strong. But I would never walk, especially when you live in Melbourne. The weather's crap. I'm not in Melbourne now. I'm in the sunny Gold Coast. But I would never walk. And it wasn't until I met my partner. He had a dog and we would walk the dog every day. And I thought, man, this guy walks all the time. What the heck? And that's when everything started to change for me. So, walking supports fat metabolism. It doesn't spike your stress hormones. It improves your mental health and your sleep. It enhances your insulin sensitivity and it is long-term sustainable. And it's so good just for your mental health to unwind. So remember, more isn't better. Gentle and consistent wins the race, especially with women who have disordered eating or burnout. This is best for you. Just to summarize for me, it was, okay, if I keep going down this road, what does that look like? Am I willing to try something different? And it was hard. I felt lazy at the time. I felt like this is a scam. This is just me not putting in the effort. But I chose to channel that time into different things, into my business, into meditating, into doing breathing exercises. And guess what? Business went well. Because one day I sat down and I thought, Steph, how much time do you actually spend exercising? So I counted the time to go to the gym, the time at the gym, driving home, showering, and it was so many hours a week. And I thought, whoa, imagine if you put those hours towards something else. Now, I'm not saying get rid of exercise altogether. I'm saying just modify it. So I probably, when he put me on a protocol of the clinical naturopath, he said, walk. He said, maybe do 3 weight training sessions a week. So I said, okay. So I embraced it. And I said, you know what? I'm actually really excited. I'm really excited to not feel tired anymore. I'm really, really excited for this. And he said, cut out the HIIT. Stop doing high intensity stuff. He goes, just till we get you back on track, just till we heal your body and get you to where you want to be. And I loved it. I love it. I love it now. Now I'm resistant to do any cardio. But if this is you, here's the steps you can take to really start to heal and move forward. Number 1, recognize that you may have a problem with over exercising. What are the signs? Do you feel guilty or anxious when you miss a workout? Do you exercise when you feel sick, injured, or exhausted? Is your workout schedule rigid or obsessive? Like, do you get flustered if you don't complete a certain exercise? Do you feel you have to burn off your food or burn calories? If so, then you probably have a problem with exercise. So if this resonates, it's time to reflect on whether this movement is still serving you or if it's controlling you. So here's how you can heal. Number 1, remember that this is not serving you. It's not getting you to where you want to get. 2 is swap HIIT for walking. So if you're doing high intensity stuff, swap it for walking. And just try 1 a week. Swap out 1 HIIT a week for walking and then you can add it. You can increase it. Remember, you can always go back to excessive exercise if this doesn't work. 3, it might be helpful to remove the numbers. I used to have one of those things at F45, the heart rate monitors, and it would like track how many calories you burn. Number 1, a lot of those things are not accurate. And number 2, it would start to play on my mind. If I got the report and then it's like, oh, you burnt this much or you didn't burn this much, I was like thinking, maybe I need to push hard enough. Maybe it wasn't good enough. When it was so great, I was getting out of bed and exercising, yet the numbers were becoming obsessive. Avoid calorie counting. I want you to focus on how you feel. I want you to focus on energy. And if you're like, yeah, but instead of exercise makes me feel good. In the short term, yes, but are you exhausted? Honestly, if you get really honest with yourself, are you actually exhausted by the end of the week? Because you shouldn't be. Now, write a list of why you move. What do you want movement to mean? Do you want it to be strength? Do you want it to be joy? Do you want it to be about your mental health? Find reasons to exercise apart from your weight, your body weight, shape, and size. That's the first bit. Now let's talk about the psychological strategies. Use thought diffusion. So thought diffusion is a psychological strategy that's designed to diffuse you from your thoughts. People fuse with their thoughts like, oh, if I don't work out, then I'm going to get fat. This is just a thought. It's not helpful. It's not a fact. It's not effective for your life. Okay? So just remember, I'm adding the thought that if I don't exercise today, I'm going to gain weight. It's just a thought. Let it go. Focus on what you can do with that time instead. You know what? Instead of going to the gym and pushing myself for 45 minutes today, I'm going to replace that with something else that makes me feel good. Reading a book, a breathwork class, a meditation. Find ways to calm your nervous system down instead of stimulating it. For me, it was working on my business. For me, it was reading, doing something else. And this will be hard in the beginning, but I promise it will get easier. And the most important thing is just to remember why you're doing this and that it's not forever. You're trying to build a happier, better relationship with food in your body. And this isn't a necessary step. It's either you do this or stay stuck. Which hard would you prefer? So remember, breaking the gym addiction, it's not just about exercise. It's about healing your relationship with it. And it's about finding out what need is this exercise meeting for me and how can I get that need met in another way? It can take months. It can take ages. But you have to fully trust your rest days and embrace walking and rest over pushing yourself. Over time, it will lead to a stronger, healthier, more resilient you. And when you're ready, when you're back and you're ready to get back into that exercise, your body's going to be in such a better position to do it. Now, if this is you and you're struggling with this and you haven't spoken to me yet or done my program, book a one-on-one call. I can help you with this because life is so much more than how you look, and you shouldn't have to worry about what you eat and exercise and your relationship with food. Remember, resting is investing. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all of the things, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Did you know by taking 2 seconds to leave a rating or a review, you help me get the podcast out to more listeners just like you who could really benefit from the information? I appreciate all your support and thank you for tuning in.